All right, there we go. Let's get our Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to take off. We got our spinning wheels going. Boom, boom, and boom. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is Tuesday morning, the 30th of January, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, Scott Kennedy. Scott, where are you? What's going on? What's the different background there? Did you bring the mailbox?
Yeah, I did not bring the mailbox.
Okay.
Albert, thank you. I left it at home where it's safe. I'm in Mobile, Alabama, same hotel I was in last year. And moving my room didn't necessarily get me much better internet access, but I'm heading for practice in 30 minutes. So we're going to keep this one tight, and I will have at least one, hopefully two, but I am shooting in 4K and I end up with multiple gigabyte files and the upload sucks. But I'll have at least Bo Nix and or Michael Penix tonight from their first day of practice for highlights for y'all.
That should be great. I am excited to see everybody out there. No doubt, it's a really talented group. Unfortunately, one of the guys that I was most interested in this crop, and Troy Fountain, who backed out yesterday, but he got his measurements in and he got out. So we'll see. Dark horse candidate maybe for the Broncos offensive tackle. But let's say hello to some folks in here and talk a little bit about the rumors coming out. I'll give credit to Denver Sports Cecil Lamey that talking about the Broncos. Nobody expects the Broncos to sit back and just take a quarterback. They want them to be aggressive. Well, takes two to tango, so we'll see what comes with that. But let's say hello to some folks in the chat here. We got David saying, morning, everyone. With a cap and 6 draft picks, it's hard, but not impossible if they really want a quarterback. If you love a guy, you make the call and you see if you can get it done. There's obviously a line for each of those quarterbacks where it's like, okay, we can't do that anymore. We can't field a competent roster if we're making that move. But yeah, it'll be hard for the Broncos considering they're going to need a lot of young players to step up with the lean cap years coming up and only one pick in the top 75. But if there's any position to do it for, it's quarterback. But you better damn well be right, because if you trade up for a first-round quarterback and miss, everybody is fired. Everybody is fired.
Yeah, you're a little, even if you make that trade and it doesn't work for not even first round. I mean, we talk about that, but winning cures all, right? I mean, we talk about some of the worst trades of all time. Did they happen in the same year, or was it 1 year? It was 1 year later. I mean, Trey Lance has to be one of the worst trades of all time, especially in the draft. And San Francisco's in the Super Bowl, so if you can cover it by, getting lucky with Brock Purdy at the end of the, Mr. Irrelevant, you can survive. You can even thrive if your team's good enough. But the Broncos aren't necessarily in that situation. And one of the points I keep making whenever we bring up the Detroit Lions, Sean Payton was talking about, look at the Lions, look at the Lions. Yeah, the Lions got 8 players by moving on from a quarterback. They didn't give up 8 players by acquiring one and then cutting him. So they're a little handicapped here, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a different situation, different than the Texans as well. And if you look at the Lions, what about the Lions? I mean, come back to it. What did they invest heavily on? It's the trenches, right? They didn't use first round pick. They did use a first round pick on a running back and a linebacker. That was this year though. After they had the logs going. The fire was built pretty well on the offense and defensive line. You can always do more there, but I think that's, if not quarterback, that's the route I'm interested in for the Broncos this year. But who knows? We got Grover coming in, $10 super. Thank you so much, Grover. He says, good morning, gents. Scott, thanks for doing all the good scouting down there at the Senior Bowl. Find us a quarterback, please. And Nick, hope you're getting some sleep, my man. Last night was probably one of the better sleep nights I've had. I don't know if it's unfortunately, I did come down to get some stuff ready. And while I was waiting for it, I oh man, I'm kind of cold. I'll sit under that blanket. Just immediately out. Sorry, don't make you spit, Scott. But that was not my best. So apologize to the wife and the kid on that one. But I'm a good sleeper. I can fall asleep pretty much immediately. So I'm sorry about that one.
I listened to the MHH guys, the last couple of nights and talk. There's a lot of Bo Nix talk here, which makes me think about 2 things here. One, if you love him, can you get him at 12? That becomes one of the big questions. If his stock really starts to elevate, and I actually think it will. I agree with them. I think it will elevate because he had amazing numbers. If I'm just trying to scout this guy off of a spreadsheet, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, 45 touchdowns to 3 interceptions is insane. That's amazing. I know he's got an arm. I've seen it. I've seen him turn the thing loose. So when he gets down there in a setting where he's throwing on air and he gets to really show off his ability to drive the ball downfield, I think people are going to really like him. So will you have to trade up to get him if he has the next couple of 6 weeks that we're expecting? And can you fight off some of the other teams that are going to be going after him too if he blows up? It's one of those things where you almost hope, we already love the guy. I hope he sucks the next 2 months. You know, when you ever gone into we've done baseball drafts for Little League. You're like, Timmy, boot these 3 ground balls. We don't want anybody to draft you ahead of us. So, you know, you almost hope that he has a bad time if you've already made your evaluations on him.
Yeah. We'll see about Bo Nix. I think that if they took him at 12, I'd understand. I mean, the big benefit would be of a young, cost-controlled quarterback who's already had a lot of starts and seen some things. It's hard with quarterbacks in that Oregon system because just because they don't show they can do something doesn't mean they can't. And it's a lot of, play action, looking for that deep shot to screen, check down behind the line of scrimmage. I saw PFF puts out the numbers recently. Like, Bo Nix was the best quarterback under pressure this season. He was also far and away the least pressured quarterback in college football out of 133 eligible. He's the least pressured. So that's partly scheme, getting the ball out, just the nature of the Pac-12 as well. So I don't know. It's a hard evaluation, Bo Nix. It's going to be good to see him down there at the Senior Bowl. I'm curious to see. He has a good arm, Scott. I don't know if I think it's probably closer to a C+, B- level arm in terms of pushing the ball in tight windows. And hopefully we'll see that more at the Senior Bowl out here. I'm going to be curious to see what it looks like next to more natural arm talent people down there in Spencer Rattler and Joe Milton. Joe Milton, erratic arm placement like crazy, but just watching the velocity, like, okay, well, is Nick's able to fit in those windows? Rattler's the one I think probably has the best overall arm down there in terms of the accuracy, the layering, the elasticity to it. So it'll be fun to watch him. And then, of course, Penix as well, who can really zip it in there outside the numbers as well. So really good quarterback here. I am going to be fascinated to see how it plays out. Mark Schrader in here getting us in. We have a short show today, but that's okay because Scott's got to go create some content. He says, good morning, guys. Good morning to you, Mark. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, good morning, Mark. Hope you're sending some warm weather. I'm a little bit closer to you now. I drove about 5 hours southwest down to Mobile, and it should be really nice here, which is what I'm looking forward to. I lost a day here a couple years ago with the rain on Thursdays, and I moved everything indoors and did not let working media in because of the space issues. And then last year, I was saved with a big old umbrella. That may have been 2 years ago. They're starting to run together on me, Nick. They really are. I'm having to remember. I got my Spencer Brown. God, it was 3 years ago already. So my Spencer Brown stuff already mixed up. Michael Ronquillo, good to see you. Says good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for Breakfast. Michael, thanks for being with us this morning on Falcons podcast and Broncos for Breakfast. We're trying to squeeze it all in. Like I said, I don't remember being this tight for time. I'm almost positive that they've moved practices up an hour, which is fine. We just have to hustle. We gotta hustle on our morning shows.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Scott, I'm curious, have you seen much of the measurements yet? Darius Robinson, does that name mean anything to you quite yet?
I haven't seen any, and I purposely have not studied any of the rosters. I picked up the rosters yesterday with my credential. I left them in the car. I haven't even looked at them. I want to see them blind, and then I want to know who they are. That's how I do it.
I got some names here I think will stand out for you this week. I think Keon Mitchell, Toledo.
Don't bias me on these. Okay. I will go in. I go in with a clean slate, and my only bias is when you see the helmet. You can't help. Again, I've said it a zillion times, y'all. There's no such thing as unbiased. It's bias is traits of your personality that make up who you are. We're all biased. So when I see, the bias that hits you is when I see an Alabama helmet versus a University of South Alabama helmet. I'm like, okay, well, this guy's probably a dude. But the compensation for that though is this dude from Texas State must be a badass to have elevated himself to get into a position to be here amongst more of these blue blood programs. I'm going to keep an eye on this guy. Plus, I like the underdog anyway, which again is a bias. So you have to try and compensate for all that type of stuff when you're prognosticating.
All right. Well, I did have a player I was curious about your opinion on down there, but we'll leave it at that. I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about it
for tonight on building the Broncos.
For sure. And we got the old man in here, Darren Kendall, Pops. He's watching the little guy upstairs. They're in town, so God bless you guys. He says, good morning, Nicholas. How's it going being a new dad for you? The ups and downs, man. It's the ups and downs, but appreciate the support we have. Family's all in the Midwest, so kind of out here on an island somewhat in Seattle, but been fortunate. Mother-in-law came out for a while we were dealing with things, and now my parents are here, so appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.
Yep. Thanks for the support across the board, Mr. Kendall. So let him be here helping out. Moms, yeah, you have your first baby. You're not complaining about the mother-in-law anymore. That's for sure. If you have
never did.
You know what I mean, though. You know what I mean. Yes, please come help, please. Draft time Broncos country says Bo Nix reminds me of Derek Carr before his back injury. I have a little trouble with comps. I don't know why that is, Nick. Just because I think I've bounced back and forth so much between high school to college to NFL that I have a little trouble making comps on these. So I don't know who Bo Nix would remind me of. I can just tell you about his traits. And I do think he's got more arm than we're going to give him credit for. I already know he's a hell of an athlete. He's a really, really good runner. So we'll see. We'll get a pretty good idea today. And it's supposed to be low wind, so you're going to get good conditions, Nick. Unfortunately, you're not going to get the wind blowing the ball over the place. See who can drive through it. I know you were hoping for some crappy conditions so you could read about it in the comfort of your own home.
Easy. Hey, I'm the backpacker, so I put myself in the bad conditions all the time. So I don't have too much sympathy. There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear, as I like to say. And Bo Nix, Derek Carr, this is not a terrible comparison. I'm curious about the deep ball arm that Derek Carr showed a lot before that back injury. That I'm not sure Bo Nix, the placement on some of that is totally there, but I don't hate it. Derek Carr was an underrated athlete prior to his back injury, so that's an interesting shout. I'm thinking about that one. If I had to rank, I mean, he's a solid athlete, like you said there, Scott. He might be only the fourth best guy of the top quarterbacks, though. I mean, obviously Caleb Williams is going to be a better athlete. Obviously Jaden Daniels is going to be a better athlete. People are raving about the testing that we're going to see from JJ McCarthy. And also I think maybe Nix is a somewhat better athlete than Drake May, but I'm not sure. Drake May is like a hulking, strapping young man. He plays strong, which Nix does too, but
if he runs, I won't be surprised to see him in the 4.6s.
Yeah.
So which is fast. I remember John Elway was like 4.7s. He's running away from people. I know it's 40 years ago, but 4.6 is fast if you know how to run. And he does. He ran a lot early in his career, for design or for trying to be safe. Because he was under pressure. Matt Henry says, good morning, Nick and Scott. I've been busy. What day is Senior Bowl? There's probably some players out on the field right this minute. Practice officially starts in 45 minutes. So we're going to keep it short. I can get just a little work done to get out of here. And then I'm heading out and heading for the fields. And then it's over at 2:00 Central. And I'll come home and start getting to work to log and upload content. So look for that this evening. It'll take me a little while to go through. And pull out all the files I want, and then the upload speed is kind of rough.
Well, you have some time to maybe watch some more prospects, kind of get yourself seeing what happens. We got Lawrence in Loving, Colorado. It must be good weather there right now or something. I don't know. Good to see you, Lawrence. Hope you're doing well.
Didn't you? Did you move recently? Because I know I could live in Colorado real easy. When I started skiing in my 30s. I'm like, okay, this is great. And then we did a summer trip to, it may have been Breckenridge, and took mountain bikes down the hills. And I'm like, yeah, I could live here. Summer's good. I'm good. I could be here. I'm much more of a mountains guy. And I know you think, Nick, you are too. Much more of a mountains, outdoors, let's do stuff and see wildlife than I am let's sit on the beach and cook type of person. Yeah. That was me when I was 18, I'm well past 18.
Yeah, it's a little bit too ADD for that. I want to go do things. Even when I'm tired, like, okay, well, I've seen that and done that. Let's keep moving. Good to see Lawrence. We got Jeff saying, do they have the means? Certainly. Is it a wise choice to do so with the current situation? Absolutely not. Lots of hole, not a lot of capital. So yeah, the topic of the show, it's a hot take maybe, but it sounds like the Broncos are going to be interested in moving up from Broncos sources. Again, credit to Cecil Lammey. Goes down. He does a great job. Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl. He'll be down there. He has great hair. Scott, you'll recognize him, I'm sure, down there. But he put it out a couple tweets talking with people boots on the ground at the Shrine Bowl that everybody expects the Broncos to aggressively look to trade up in the draft to go get a quarterback. I just don't know what means you have to do so right now without really tying your arms behind your back at the just filling out the rest of the roster, especially when you're so poor in the trenches as the Broncos are, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive line, talked about it on here a lot, Scott. I thought this offensive line this year was top 12 in the NFL. Now, one of the big reasons for that was they had like absolutely no injuries on that unit. So if we didn't have to really see the depth where 90% of the other teams are down, 2 or 3 offensive linemen at some point, Broncos lost McGlinchey for like, I don't know, 20 snaps this year, and that's about it. So that's a big bonus for the offensive line, the cohesion and just not having to get into the depth. And the defensive line, we talked about it on here, Scott. This might be the worst defensive front I can think of watching the Broncos in the last decade. From edge to defensive tackle. I mean, the only guy who I can say for sure is a above average contributor is Zach Allen, and the teams who are pretty much hanging in the playoffs year after year, they have their second string defensive line is better than the Broncos' first string. So now you're talking about giving up draft picks where you pretty much have to draft most of the time for defensive line, the body beautiful guys. Their NFL's littered with first round picks, specifically at edge, but first round picks, top 40 picks at those spots. So if again, your train doesn't leave the station until you have the quarterback, but it's just a hard spot for where the Broncos are right now. They kind of shot their shot with Russell Wilson and airballed it.
Yeah, and now you're rebuilding to a certain extent. That said, can this team be better in 2024 than they were in 2023?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
And they were 8-9, and they weren't as bad as 1-5. They weren't as good at 6-1. They finished about where they should have been, which is right around 500. An incremental improvement. You flip to 9-8 to 10-7. Unfortunately, you're in the AFC, which is it's deeper in that area when you've got the Cleveland Browns and Cincinnati Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers fighting for those spots, and oh boy, here come the Colts and the Texans too. What will the Raiders do? And the Chargers, could they revive? It's harder. That incremental improvement might still not get you in the playoffs, but I've always asked, my teams, my kids, myself, just always improve, constantly get better. You can get better with this team, and because the bar was set so low on the defensive line, I don't think it'll be that hard to improve it, even if you can't dump a high round pick into it or a couple high round picks into it. You got to do better about getting your $2 million veterans in there that are better than the Jonathan Harrises of the world. And you're going to get about $10 million back from DJ Jones because he's a cut candidate and he massively underperformed.
Yeah.
That you can get 2 guys in for what you're paying him, 2 good players there. The question I have, Nick, is the patience of Sean Payton. Because if you go all in on trying to move up, that's a project. That restarts the clock on a 3-year project. Can you hover around 500 for 4 years? Because we've already got one in the bank for 4 years. Is Sean Payton still going to be around? Is he going to have the patience? Are you going to want him around? If you're 30, how many games is that? I don't know, 24-24 after 3 seasons of Sean Payton.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for the Broncos right now, no doubt. Sean Payton is 60 years old, so in theory, he could have another decade in the league still. But Nick Saban just retired at 72. Belichick's up there as well, so he's still got a window here, no doubt. But does he have a window if the team is not succeeding? Because if you trade up for a quarterback and you're not winning, let's be real. I know I said that if you traded for a quarterback and you missed, everybody's fired. 49ers were in a different situation, right? They were just 1 year off from being in the Super Bowl the year prior, and they had a down season and moved up. And they talk about defensive trenches for a team. But I don't know if that's the same situation for the Broncos here. If they love a guy and it's not too expensive, though, or they're absolutely sold on a guy and they can go up and get him, I'm not against it. But, man, it is risky, Scott. And maybe I'm a little bit biased and a little bit scared after the Broncos shot their shot and blew up with Russell Wilson. And we saw that the roster around Russell Wilson, once those draft picks were gone, once you missed on a few free agent signings, how quickly the talent around the quarterback dries up as well. So I'm not as open to it. I think if I was trading up for one of the guys in this class, it would be Drake May or Caleb Williams, period. I don't know if I'm trading up for I have a hard time with Jaden Daniels in the NFL, Scott, because he hits that back foot and then looks to take off if that read's not there. And with his play style, He looks like. Did you ever play the game Sonic growing up?
No, but that sounds a lot like Justin Fields.
It's it's kind of like Justin Fields, but Justin Fields is built. He's
Mhm.
thick. Jaden Daniels looks like a string bean out there, and some of the hits he takes, he looks like Sonic was a video game, the Hedgehog, and he'd get hit and he'd like arms in the air, legs in the air, and the coins would fly everywhere. That's kind of what it looks like with Jaden Daniels sometimes. It's like I've seen people call it cartoonish. I'm like, yes, it is. It's wild. So he kind of scares me a little bit with that. Uh, if they were trading up for, I think the next category here then would be Nix/McCarthy. I don't think Penix is in the conversation for that next guy right now. Sorry, guys. But could the Broncos maybe trade up to 9? Could they trade up to 10 and a slight move up? Maybe only having to give up a future second and a third this year or something like that to go up. It's still, man, that getting rid of top 100 picks sucks, Scott. I don't know if I love that, but if they love that quarterback and they hit on the quarterback, that's absolutely right. That's good. But man, you better be right because you just do not have margin for error with where you are cap wise, roster pick wise, and roster talent wise right now.
And if you don't want to have any margin for error and you want to make sure you're going to get what you order, call Little Caesars. Make Little Caesars, who is the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. We got Super Bowl coming up. Who wants to cook? Go order some pizza and have some people bring in some extra food for you. Order online during our Pizza pregame 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, which will be all day on Super Bowl Sunday, and get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. I still crave pepperoni, and I've been a vegetarian for 7 years. Either way, you win.
Yeah, Little Caesars is the best. And what's the best is the crazy bread, of course. The stuffed crazy bread, dipping in marinara sauce. Always been a big fan. I can't imagine the people, like the kids who just leave the crust on the plate. Hell no. And now that it's stuffed as well, the crazy bread seasoning, the absolute best. It's always a winning combination. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with a convenient delivery in our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the upcoming Super Bowl, which, gosh, we haven't talked about that, Scott. I'm just so tired of the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, is he Michael Jordan? I mean, is he just Michael Jordan? That's like we had Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Was that Bird and Magic, and now we have MJ? It's wild.
Too hard to cross over like that just because
Yeah.
it's 5 guys versus 22 guys.
Yeah.
So you can't. It's harder to dominate. That said, the same
It's
guy.
unbelievable.
I picked the Bills. I picked the Ravens. I don't know why. I'm stupid to pick against the Chiefs. I'm not doing it again. I'm going to pick the
No.
Chiefs this time and see if the 49ers can win. Oh, so they can get what'll be their 6th Super Bowl. I've lost count. 6. Running out of fingers.
Good for them.
Paul says, "Good morning, Nick and Scott. If we traded top 3, wouldn't we load up on undrafted free agents with Penner Group's deep pockets? Undrafted free agents are dirt cheap, so you don't really have to worry about that. That becomes more of a recruiting tool. Who can I get in here? There might even be a limit on what you're allowed to pay those guys, Nick. I'm not sure, but you're not going to run out of money on that. The poverty franchises can get as many, can bring those. It's just a matter of, then it becomes recruiting. Can I sell these guys on the opportunity when you've got 4 other teams calling you to bring in? And on the defensive line, sure. But the other problem that, Paul, is, if they went undrafted, how good are they going to be? I don't want 5 undrafted free agents on my defense. I can get lucky on 1 or 2, maybe even 1 a year, 1 every other year. But if they went undrafted, they probably went undrafted for a reason. And yes, there are the exceptions. I know, but I don't want to build a team with undrafted free agents.
No, and there's been talk that this upcoming class pretty thin, and once it kind of bottoms out after top 150 picks, and a lot of the picks round 5 through 7 are going to be a little bit more like your undrafted free agent pool years prior, just because of NIL stuff and the extra COVID year still going on. I think we have 1 more season of that. So I don't know if loading up with UDFA is a good decision. It doesn't matter about the deep pockets though, and that's one where it's just the opportunity. And I agree, Scott, it's recruiting. It's also relationship with the agents. A lot of times, if there's coaches or front office people and they have relationship with players' agents, then the agents kind of funnel them to different teams, different opportunities, but doesn't have anything to do with the deep pockets of the Penner Group. You're right in that assessment.
Draft Time Broncos Country says, who was the last run-first quarterback that went to a Super Bowl? Cam Newton. We all know how that one worked. I wouldn't even call Cam a run-first quarterback. He threw for almost 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns that year. because he was so big and such a good runner, people underestimated how good of an arm he had. He had a wonderful arm. That's why he went number 1 overall, not because he was even Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson wasn't as good of a passer, especially with the experience that Cam Newton was. Cam Newton was special, man. He really was as a prospect.
Jalen Hurts is a worse passer than Cam Newton. Jalen Hurts was just in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, it's so I wouldn't call you're not playing in the league if you can't throw the ball. I mean, obviously that's an overestimation, but Cam Newton is a good thrower. he's a good thrower. And he got beat up because he was also a really good runner, which becomes the concern. How much, and that's the concern. I just mentioned Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson started 4 games, just 4. He finished 1. He got knocked out of 3 of the 4 games he played because he was that big guy who didn't learn how to protect himself yet.
Yeah. And as far as I still see my undrafted free agent talk here, I think you can find some undrafted free agents, specifically linebacker, safety, cornerback, interior offensive line, running back, tight end. I mean, those guys every year, maybe even sometimes some depth wide receivers, but offensive tackles, typically starting caliber ones, defensive linemen, edge rushers, finding good undrafted free agents at those spots. I mean, just good freaking luck, man. Good luck. And again, circling back to the Broncos potentially trading up. We'll see. Right now, I don't think I would be a big advocate for it from where I sit, but I also am a proponent of empowering Sean Payton. And if there's a guy that Sean Payton likes, I think that you make the move if you can. Unfortunately, there's going to be teams all surrounding the Broncos that have more capital and the ability to make it a more enticing deal probably in the future, but it'll be interesting. The real chip here that makes me uncomfortable, but if you want to get a guy enough, I know Broncos country wants that quarterback. Are you comfortable trading Patrick Surtain? Because if you are, doors open for you. If you're not, you better hope and pray at 12 or be looking day 2 and hope something lands there.
And going back to the Detroit thing, and Michael Rankier says the Broncos appreciate the stars, Michael, and draft time Broncos country. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. I forgot to say that when you came in.
Yep.
It says Broncos hired Cody Rager as a new VP of player personnel. Thoughts, Nick and Scott? I don't know too much about him, to be honest with you. That's a little bit deeper than I've gone in my knowing players. I mean, not players, but knowing personnel.
Apparently, he's a really well thought of mind in the front office side of things and the college evaluation coming from the Saints. So there obviously probably some relationship there with Sean Payton. I don't know what it means for George Payton for this team, but heck, we'll see how it works out for the Broncos. Maybe that's your future GM. Maybe George Payton's out after the end of the year and this guy is elevated. I mean, certainly possible. Who knows? Jesse Fraley, before we get Scott out of here, because he's got to go get some footage here. What do you guys think about Luke McCaffrey? Love to see another McCaffrey wide receiver in the Broncos, but that's an emotional thought process. Going to be curious to see what he looks like. He did not really have a great year at, I want to say Duke. Is it Rice, though? I think it's actually Rice, but solid player. We'll see how he stands out at the Senior Bowl. There's going to be opportunities for him, and he can make himself a lot of money if he stands out there.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing him. I don't know too much about him, Jesse. Appreciate the super chat. This is the week where I start getting draft work in. Aside from the top 10, 15 guys that we've already talked about, give me a week, then give me another week to go through all of that video again, and I'll know 100 guys. I'll know the day 3 guys, which I'm looking forward to that, so I can be there for y'all. I can be a better source for you guys.
Yeah, there's unfortunately the Mick is a Scottish origin name, right? McCaffrey, the MC Macbeth, that's Scottish. There's another
Irish, depending.
Irish, okay, yeah. Scott, earmuffs for you, but there's another Scottish named Caucasian wide receiver down there at the Senior Bowl that I think is much more interesting this go around that we're gonna get a chance to see. McConkey, yep, I think day 2 probably, but early round 2. But man, he's dude just gets open. I think he's an underrated athlete as well. Not height, weight, speed, but
no, I bet he throws in like a 3.9 shuttle or something silly, like a 6.8, 6.7 Elcone.
He might end up being the best wide receiver down there. We'll see. It's going to be a good time. Scott, we got to get you out of here. Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well. And gosh, get that footage and let us know what you think tonight.
Got to roll. We'll see how quick I can get some stuff done. I might be able to share some clips for y'all on building the Broncos tonight. Nick, sign us off. I'm going to head out. Thank you, everybody. I want to say a quick thank you to Grover, Mark, Michael, Lawrence, Darren. That's Mr. Kendall to you and me, or Dad to you, actually. Draft Time Broncos Country, and Paul. So thank you very much. And I'm actually missing Jesse Fraley as well. So appreciate y'all. I'm going to go. Nick, sign us out, and I will see y'all before. Well, I might see y'all a little bit tonight. So have a good day, everybody. Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, happy Tuesday. Appreciate all of you. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendall MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle, of course. If you're not on Facebook, make sure you join our Facebook groups, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. We appreciate everyone coming in. Should be a fun time down there at the Senior Bowl. We'll see who stands out. Some pretty good offensive linemen, some pretty good defensive linemen as well. Unfortunately, Byron Murphy, defensive tackle from Texas, backed out, but some other fun names out there. I'm really curious to see, since Scott's now, I guess I can say Darius Robinson is a name that I'm really curious about as well. A little bit better version of Carl Brooks last year, who had a really good time for the Packers this year, draft pick from Bowling Green. So Darius Robinson, Missouri, came in about 290 pounds, 35-inch arm length, plays a little bit more like an edge within a defensive tackle body type. Versatile, fun player. I'll be curious to see what it happens. Yeah, and Nick loves to cut it short. And yeah, Nick is going to get on out of here pretty soon because Nick's got to go do dad duties here pretty soon as well. Other Senior Bowl guys, I guess I can just run through some of the guys who are standing out here to me. Like I said, I think I said it on the Falcons podcast. I'm really pretty bummed, unfortunately, that Troy Fontenot, the offensive tackle from Washington, are going to be out. He measured the short, under 6'4" at offensive tackle, which is not ideal, but 34-inch arm length out there. Big fan of his tape. I mean, gosh, I'm kind of sad that he is out because I thought he had a chance to be. I mean, gosh, his tape is good enough. You'd make an argument for offensive tackle 3, even though he isn't body beautiful like a Mims, like a JC Latham. But man, really, really good offensive tackle tape. Really fun. I'm curious to see what, like I mentioned earlier, Lad McConkey does out there. I want to see what Malachi Corley, wide receiver from Western Kentucky, looks like as well. He was an unbelievable yak player for the Hilltoppers the last 2 seasons, but they really ran an offense where he didn't get to show much route running prowess. Now we're going to get the one-on-ones. What does his routes look like? Can he do more displaying a route tree than what was on tape, just because of the style of offense they played there? But man, he plays like a wide receiver. You're looking for a Deebo Samuel type in this draft. Malachi Corley out of a Western Kentucky is the name to keep an eye on. My favorite tight end in this group is going to be Theo Johnson from Penn State. They had him playing everywhere, H-back. They had some fullback looks for him. That's in the slot, out wide sometimes, in line. He's going to measure. Gosh, I don't have his official measurements here, but Theo Johnson played at Penn State. He was, let me see, I can pull up the measurements here. Really good live streaming, I know, guys. Theo Johnson, there we go. Got 6'6", 260 for Theo Johnson, tight end from Penn State. I think he's going to end up going round 3. So that's one that I would definitely keep an eye on for him. Just if the Broncos looking to get a tight end, it'd be fun. The offensive tackles here, this is one of the better offensive tackle groups that I can think of in a while. You got Jordan Morgan from Arizona. You got Patrick Paul from Houston. You got Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, who Jim Nagy compared to Tyron Smith, which is unbelievable. And you got Talise Fuaga, who's probably the most currently highly rated player of the offensive tackles in this upcoming class. So watch out for those guys, no doubt. Should be a lot of fun. Also, just an awesome interior offensive line class. You got Jackson Powers Johnson, center from Oregon. Kingsley Sumateia is also there, BYU offensive tackle. Going to probably play right tackle in league. They got him listed as guard here, interestingly. 2 interior guys I'm interested to watch: Zach Fraser from Western Michigan and Jackson Powers Johnson. Both are going to be top 50 picks, so that'll be a lot of fun. Defensive line-wise, Tavondre Sweat should be fun. Rook Arohoro is going to be an interesting one to watch. Really, really unpolished, but a lot of tools there. When I watch him, I'm like, man, is his goal to bump bellies with the offensive lineman? Because he runs through them, but he has no idea what he's doing with his hands right now. Name on the defensive line I'm probably circling for the Broncos to keep an eye on is McKinley Jackson, defensive tackle from Texas A&M. He was a really highly rated recruit coming out there for them. And let me see what we got the measurements here. 6'2", 330 pounds with 33-inch arms. A little bit of a fire hydrant, not the biggest in terms of the height, but very, very big in terms of the length and the weight. So we'll be watching him as well. Will be fun. Corey's saying a 4.5 40 for Theo Johnson. Theo spurned Iowa. They were one of the last schools for him, and he went to Penn State, who just can never develop people. I don't know what they recruit well, but they cannot develop guys. So Theo Johnson should have been a Hawkeye, but a really good athlete. Connor Bebe. I think that Bebe pulled out of the Senior Bowl and is going to be a maybe fall a little bit. I think he has 31-inch arm length too, which for me, Eric always gives me a hard time. Like, oh, might as well quit. I'm like, well, not many 31-inch arm length guys out there successful. Not quit, but probably I wouldn't take him until day 3. And Colin says, man, who has time to watch all this stuff? I just watch a lot of college football, man. That's really is what it is. So yeah, it's going to be fun to follow everybody here. We got to get on out. Appreciate everyone. I know Scott got to get this out here as well. So again, some names that I'm watching for here on the upcoming Senior Bowl. Hopefully we'll see some defensive and offensive linemen stand out. And the quarterbacks, didn't even talk quarterback. Pratt, Rattler, obviously 2 names, day 2 that are really intriguing. Rattler especially because the arm is real, guys. The arm is real, and we'll see what happens. So got to get out of here. Appreciate all you. Have a good one. See ya.